2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brannon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us.
We can't afford therapy. Can we still get into recovery?
Welcome to the Real Talk Recovery Podcast with the Therapy Brothers.
We're brothers, we're therapists, and we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery.
All right, I can't wait to get into that topic. I think it's it's a topic that really needs to be discussed. And I don't think we've ever talked about it here on this show. So that's awesome. But before we do, I just want to acknowledge that I'm alone today. Tyler is off in Miami and just traveling the world, living the dream, doing the thing that Tyler gets to do, while I'm stuck here working. So I'm just kidding. Tyler needs a break, and I'm glad he's gone, and I hope he has a great time. So I do have a guest here today, though, and I'm really excited to talk to her. So Ariel, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So Ariel, if you could give me just a little bit of context, a little bit of background, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah. So this June will be 3 years since my husband actually came to me and let me know that he had pornography addiction. From the very beginning, I was very gracious and compassionate towards him. And so that was kind of the beginning, which I know is not the norm for most people. Now, slowly but surely, I think betrayal trauma really set in for me kind of around that 6-ish month mark where things were still happening. And he was being honest as best as he thought he could be. But it was just too much for me. I have my own kind of sexual baggage from childhood and some sexual trauma. So around the 6-month mark, they kind of became tied together. And I didn't recognize that at first, but it felt like I was like trying to flee from, anytime something was happening, I could just feel like inside, I was just like, I gotta get out of here. I
just
can't
overwhelmed. Yeah,
definitely. And so it wasn't until I've gone to therapy much later that I recognized that the two were tied together, that it was like he was preying on me, not on someone else, or, something along those lines. So from around that 6-month mark, there was just some really good God things that kind of fell into place that allowed us to connect with a CSTAT counselor. And we really could only afford a few months worth. So we had some money set aside from a litter of puppies that we had. And so we took that money, we put it into counseling. And so we did a disclosure and that kind of thing. So fast forward, we could only do that for about 3 months. He got into a group, which we paid for, an online group, which it's basically like a year's group. And I think in total, it's close to like $800 or $900.
Okay.
And so he did that for a year. He had some really good stretches in there, but he's never gone longer than about 6 months. And in the last year, it's been dramatically worse. Like hasn't gone 30 days since October of last year. And so it has severely wrecked our marriage. He was in California for 3 weeks a month ago. And, it's like, okay, well, we want to do therapy again, but still there's this financial burden of, okay, we have to set aside money to be able to do this. We have 6 kids. We're actually pregnant with our 7th.
Oh my gosh.
Accidentally.
Wow.
Definite overly surprised when you've done something medical to prevent it and it still happens
my
anyway.
gosh,
So.
Ariel.
So pregnant with our 7th, which is just another added stressor to the situation. 6 kids under 13.
Oh my
gosh. A small farm, and we also homeschool. So
there's just a little on your plate. There, Ariel.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. He has been pretty open to anything that like I've suggested and stuff like that. And he's very honest. And I think that's the one thing that really has drawn me back over and over again, is that he's been really, sadly, sometimes brutally honest with me.
Okay.
And so his addiction is pornography. He's never stepped outside of our marriage in any other way.
Okay.
And so after he went to California and came back, we kind of like recommitted to try to figure this all out. And in turn, we've talked a lot about counseling and getting into another group and things like that. The last time he was in a real group was September of last year. And he's not the kind of person who really likes to commit to do things on a set schedule, regular basis.
Okay.
So I do feel like group is great for him because it forces him to get into that regular rhythm of dealing with his own stuff and everything like that. He has a ton of childhood trauma, which I think is one of the reasons why I feel like he really needs therapy and needs to be with a counselor. He was bullied as a kid, neglected. His parents were divorced when he was 4. His mom, his earliest childhood memory is his mom getting beaten by his dad and arrested.
Oh, wow.
And then she married 4 other times besides that and had numerous boyfriends live with them. And so he had a lot of non-very good father figures in his life. And he kind of had to figure things out on his own from a pretty early age.
Yeah.
And he grew up raising himself mostly. His mom worked except for, 2 days over the weekend. And so there wasn't a lot of parent figure in his life. And his older sisters, as soon as they could get out of the house, were out of the house.
Okay. So
that's kind of the backstory for him. That's one of the reasons why I feel like therapy would be excellent for him. And, being in therapy myself, I found a very reasonable, counselor that is way cheaper than you can get for like a CSTAT counselor or a very well trained counselor in sexual addiction, which I feel like is important because we had, during this period of the 3 years, besides the 3 months worth of CSTAT, he also had a little bit of time with just a regular counselor who was trained with had some addiction background and stuff like that, but not really trained in this area. And it was good. Like he was able to vent some things out that he didn't really want to talk to me about, but it didn't really get him anywhere. It didn't help him grow in any way. I don't feel like it pushed him to move forward or to get through some of the stuff that I feel like hangs him up now. And so that was through, I don't know if you know what BetterHelp is, but basically it's like a subscription program. And so it's way cheaper than going with an actual therapist. So we did that for a while. And then, his group ended. And part of that was, and that one of the reasons I feel like a counselor would be better for him is that he got ganged up on in one of the last sessions of his group. The group had finished, but they were meeting anyways. And they talked about a touchy subject, and his viewpoint was different. And he felt really ganged up on. And after that, he was like, I can't trust them. They don't really care about me. And so it's extremely difficult for him to trust someone. And I don't feel like he even truly trusts me, even though we've been married for 15 years.
Mm.
And so then that was like the end point for him. Like he hasn't been in a group since then. He has in a committed group. He was in a group for a few weeks, but he was like, this isn't working. And so because of that, because it's really difficult for him to trust people, I feel like what would be best for him is to be with a trained therapist who isn't going to tear him down or, be harsh with him, because he really needs someone to be gentle. And it's just a huge financial burden for our family. And I know I've heard that from lots of families that say, that have multiple children and, their budget's tight, and like, how do you afford therapy and still, be able to afford life
Right.
too?
Right. I have some answers for you, but before I get to them, Ariel, I want to ask you just a few things. So is the farm his full-time job? Is that like his job? No.
So he has a job that's based over the internet, which is part of the problem, because he can't just get away from all electronical things, because he has to work on a computer every day. Okay. He has his own home office. And so that's where his flips happen, is with his work computer. And we've talked about difference in jobs and stuff, but he gets paid extremely well, and it's really hard to say we're just going to upheave life because of the situation. And he works from home, and he's been doing that for close to 10 years now, I think, like 7 or 8 years. I think this year might be 9 years. And the farm is actually my dream.
Oh, okay.
He was born in the city, never owned a pet. And somehow I dragged him into this mess, which he doesn't love all the time, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So, are you guys religious?
Yeah, we're Christian. Mm-hmm.
You're Christian, and
I was a pastor's kid growing up. So
okay. So do you have a pretty tight-knit community with that?
I feel like I do. I feel like he could. He just doesn't trust people. So our pastor knows. We've met with him a few times. He's offered, he's reached out to him and said, hey, if you need anything, if we can get together. He's offered to kind of be a mediator for us, trying to work through some of the stuff we've had a really hard time with lately. And he doesn't really want to do that. He doesn't feel comfortable everybody knowing his life, his stuff, all that stuff. Okay. And, he prefers an online group where he doesn't have to meet someone in person, and it's not people in his community and, things like that. So I have a ton of people in my life. I have 5 very close friends who all know what's happening, and they've been really good about being there for me when I needed them. And I really feel like he has no one most of the time. Okay. He says that he'd reach out to one of the guys from the group if he was struggling now. He's done pretty well in the last month since he's been home. On a weekly, daily, monthly basis at this point. But those were probably the closest people he had until kind of that upheaval of mistrust and stuff happened. Okay. He has a couple of cousins he's kind of closest with, and one of which was during this time when I asked him to leave, and he was gone 3 weeks. They just had a clashing of their relationship and haven't been able to mend it ever since. And he was probably the closest person to him. Okay. So again, goes back to, he pretty much relies on me, which, how dangerous that can be for this journey. Yeah,
as you're talking, Ariel, there's a couple things coming up for me. I'm definitely seeing some patterns. But I want to ask you, what do you guys do for fun, and what does he do for fun?
Well, I've really pushed him for the last 6 months that he needs to do more for himself. Hey, go do something, Mm-hmm. He likes bowling, so he's been trying to do that a little bit more regularly. Okay. And he loves music. He's extremely musically talented. Pick something up, He's never played it before. I got him a guitar for his birthday in December, and he can play Red Hot Chili Peppers. I mean, he can play pretty much anything he hears on it.
Nice.
Pink Floyd. I mean, he just picks it up and he can just start playing it.
Okay.
So he plays a lot of music, and we've expanded that to more musical things for him to play and practice on. So he has quite a variety now of different types. He's got drums, bass guitar, regular guitar. We expanded his speaker system so that he could really enjoy the music that comes out of the speakers.
Okay.
So that's kind of his jam. And he does that on an almost daily basis now, which I
Awesome.
think is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as far as me, I love the farm. And then I love to be social. I'm a social person. So I enjoy
Nice.
having time with friends, going to get coffee or something like that. Most of
Okay.
my other hobbies I don't really get to do. I picked up painting a little bit more after I got into therapy, because she's like, I feel like you just need something else that you can do. But it's really hard when you have 6 kids, because as soon
Yeah.
as I get painting stuff out, everybody wants to paint. So
Yeah.
I don't do that as much because it's a
Okay.
chore instead of a joy most of the time.
Yeah. Which, yeah, I mean, your kids take your life over. But one last question, and then I want to dig in here a bit more. Does he like his job?
No,
Okay.
nope.
That's
He
what
feels
I thought you'd
very,
say.
very much enslaved to this job because it supports his family.
So he's trapped.
He feels very trapped in this job. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, excellent benefits, excellent, it's really hard to give up something where, not only is it going to provide for your family, but dental vision, all the things this job provides. But no, he doesn't, he has absolutely no passion for it whatsoever. It's all, it's his warranty work. So it's all like numbers and,
Mm-hmm.
which he's good at. He'd be an excellent accountant too.
Right.
But he doesn't have any passion for it. He doesn't love it in any way.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I've never met anyone really passionate about warranties, but um, so why am I asking you all these questions?
Well, I usually assume it's to get some background so you know how to answer the questions that people ask.
But I'm doing
and
something else,
curiosity
Ariel.
too.
I'm doing something else. Other than just gathering information, I'm doing something else. I'm taking an assessment of the inputs in your guys' life and the inputs in his life. So that with the question of we can't afford therapy, what can we do? When I look at the inputs of his life and I look at what's happening in your lives, there's a lot of good things happening. But the culmination of all of these things that are going on in your life is culminating in what you're getting. If you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I'm hearing about his recovery through your perspective, but what I'm hearing is a not a very solid support system, feeling trapped in a job. Even where you guys live at the farm, like kind of placating and doing it for you. But feeling some passion with music and bowling, some hobbies that he likes to do. But you combine all of those things, and what I'm hearing is there's just not much passion, purpose, and healthy outlets in his life. And it's a day-to-day grind, raising the kids, feeling stuck at his job, and there's probably a ton of pain and shame underneath that he hasn't dealt with. So he's trying to survive without healthy outlets with a ton of pain underneath, right? The first things that you guys can do are the free ones, which are to look at your life and say, okay, what can we do? How can we shift things so that we set ourselves up for success? You can go pay the most expensive CSAT, the best CSAT ever. And if you expect that CSAT to just fix it all, that's not going to happen. All of the recovery capital, we call it, the whole system needs to be in conjunction. It needs to work in conjunction with itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So like what can shift?
Yeah, and this has been a subject that we brought up, even in our budget and stuff, like what areas can we shift our budget so that we can, because if you add up, something that I mean, he enjoys to drink beer, although he doesn't drink beer anymore because he's actually gluten intolerant, came to find out.
Okay.
But he'll have a glass of wine at most days. And it's like, oh, what if we take alcohol out of the budget altogether? That's
Right.
one more area we could use that money towards something else. And, I've thought about, okay, for this time, yeah, this is my dream. But I told him I'd live in a cardboard box if it meant that he could find healing and recovery. Not to say we can't have a farm later on in life or something like that, to take that money, out of our budget, and you know, and the time and effort it takes, because it does take time and effort
Yeah.
on all of our part.
Yes.
That maybe this season is something that we have to be willing to give up some things for this season.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I've thought about, at least with the farm situation, is that I just worry about because I feel like I'm willing to give up more right now than he's willing to give up. That I'm worried that there will be resentment there, because
On your part.
if he doesn't do well, or if he continues to struggle, or like this last year was definitely the hardest for us. And that's with him not really being involved in anything, I feel like. And he kept saying, I feel like what he did was he was really committed to the first group, really committed with the first counselor. And then he felt like it didn't work. I didn't fix me. I'm not fixed. And because he didn't feel like it worked, it didn't fix him. There was not a lot of commitment there. And he's still struggling to find that commitment to want to do those things because he felt like it didn't help him. But
Ariel, that's an interesting thing you just said, because to be honest with you, like I don't know how good the program was or not that he did. But the clients that come into my programs and work with me, the ones that succeed are not the ones coming in saying, I'm paying you money and you're going to fix me. They're the ones that come in and they are motivated because, like I said, I could be the best therapist ever. But they still need to do their own work. And I'm kind of picking up a little bit of like ambivalence or just like middle ground motivation here from him. Like when it does get hard, is he bailing? When he has some friction in group, when there's some conflict, when the therapist pushes him a little bit, it's like, well, I'm not going to do that or that. I don't want to. So how motivated is he really to step into the hardest parts of the recovery work? He can kind of dip his toe in the water, then go back to survival mode. And that's what he's doing. And you're getting to a breaking point of enough is enough. This is so hard. Things have to change. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely feel that way. And I think money is probably the biggest factor that he plays into everything that we've done, as far as like what we choose to do and how we do it. It's like, well, that costs a lot of money.
Well,
doing an intensive, for instance, he's like, I'm not paying $3,000 for a weekend. Like,
but I gotta ask you, Ariel. Yeah. Like, is that just an excuse? Because it's interesting. People will pay $3,000 to fix their car like that. It's like, well, I got to get from there, but $3,000 to fix their soul and their emotional health and their marriage is like, well, there's no guarantee that will work. And I'm not saying he should go spend the $3,000, but you said he makes good money. And at the same time, you're saying, but we can't afford anything. And I realize you have a farm and 6 kids and one on the way. I get it. Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it does take sacrifice, and it shows priority when it's, look, we might have to cut out that family vacation because dad's going to this retreat. That sucks. Mm-hmm. But you know what? That's what needs to be done right now, because we got to fight for our family right now. You see what I'm saying? And you understand this. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I've probably listened to almost every podcast you guys have, and probably like 6 or 7 other therapist podcasts. I mean, I have probably 100+ hours worth of listening time to, so, and that's one of the things. There's a podcast I listened to, and he said, if you take your car to a mechanic, the mechanic certified, you trust him, right? to do the job. But if you take your car to a friend who doesn't know what they're doing, are you really going to trust that they're going to be able to get your car done the right way? And
Right.
I started to realize that's kind of how I view what's happening between us is,
Mm-hmm.
I have hundreds of hours worth of experience in this topic now. And, I've been in a group, been in counseling, got with a ABSAT coach, so I got a ton of experience, and I feel like he has very minimal experience. He got into the one group. He's been with a CSAT counselor for 3 months, but otherwise he doesn't listen to any podcasts. He's not reading any books. He doesn't really care to broaden his scope. And he basically says it's like having, a pink elephant in the room. Don't look at the pink elephant. Don't look at the pink elephant. And for him, it's a trigger to be listening to podcasts. It's a trigger to read a book. It's a trigger to be in group. And so he doesn't, at all costs, he tries to avoid it. Same with, everything else when it comes to life with us, conflict, avoid at all costs,
Avoidance. Yeah.
So avoidance is definitely his safety mechanism. And so,
but as long as he avoids doing recovery work, as long as he avoids like difficult conversations with you, as long as he avoids things, this coping mechanism helps him survive. If we look at this, it helps him kind of keep the status quo of what he's doing in his life. And if he can avoid things with you, he can kind of keep the marriage because the conflict doesn't really come up. But that's not true. Ultimately, if he avoids doing his recovery work, if he avoids doing the hard work in the marriage, eventually things are going to fall apart. And this avoidant attachment, avoidant issue that he has, there's something underneath that. And that something underneath is the thing that needs to be addressed. Here's the problem. I can tell you this all day long, and you can go tell him that, and he'll probably try to avoid what you're saying. Probably try not to fully take that in. You can't make him, Ariel. You can't force him. And hundreds of hours of listening and doing your own work and running a farm and having baby after baby, like you are doing so much, but you cannot make him get into recovery. And it affects you if he doesn't get into recovery. So then that leads to it leads to, okay, then in your recovery, if that's the reality, then what do you do?
Yeah. And I thought plenty about that. I mean, when he was gone for 3 weeks, that was the thing I was struggling with the most. It's like trying to figure out, at that point he was done. He was very done at that point. He had said, I didn't leave to get to work on this. I left to get away from us. Again, that avoidance tactic he uses. And so, there was a lot of thought of like, okay, what are we going to do? What do I need? What do I want? What do I want to see happen from here forward? And, I made a list of expectations, which the plan was to meet with somebody when he came home, and he's been home a month now, and we haven't met with anybody yet, to go over those expectations, my wants, my desires, and same for him. What are your expectations? What are your wants? What are your needs? What are your desires? And to kind of just put those two together and be able to talk about where we have some kind of conflict as far as where we meet up, and figure out like what the next step for that would look like. And then again, it comes down to, well, we can't really afford a marriage counselor or and
but Ariel, can you not afford it, or does he just say that you can't?
I think if we really went really hard, like down to beans and rice kind of situation, we could afford, but like, okay, for instance, on average, a good counselor is $150 a week. That's $600 a month that we would have to set aside, which feels impossible. It really does feel impossible.
Right.
I mean, we don't sit, we keep a certain amount of cushion in our savings account, and then we pretty much live paycheck to paycheck, except for what sits in our savings account in case of an emergency, like the car breaks down, or, there's an emergency room visit or something.
Right.
So, looking for like free resources, and I don't know how much, because I know that there's a lot of people that maybe just have some dad issues, but I know that he has some pretty deep rooted childhood trauma stuff. And so it makes the question really is, can he really do it without getting in with someone who can dig in deeper with him?
Yes.
Can he really
Yes.
Would a 12-step program still be good?
Yes. So Ariel, let's say I had $1,000 in a year to spend on therapy. Like all I had was a grand for an entire year. Okay. So that's like less than $100 a month. What would I do? The first thing I do is really take an inventory of everything that I can do that's free, that's good for me. So like I would kick into gear little simple basic recovery things like exercise and getting sleep and having a good diet. So I just start with the basics of self-care. Those are completely free. The next thing I would do is go to, and I might shop around a little bit, but not too much, but I'd find a good SA group, which is completely free. And this is what's hard for him is it's a catch-22 because he's avoidant. This goes directly against what he normally does. It's uncomfortable to go to a 12-step meeting for the first time and meet awkward people. And they might say one thing that's like, well, I'm out. But I would say, you know what? I'm committed to this for a while. I'm going to commit for 3 months until I try a different one, no matter what. Because this is a free resource. It's going to give me support. It's going to give me that support system. I'm going to go to 12-step. I'm going to do my dailies, all free. Podcasts, reading books, education, good YouTube videos, like so much content now, so much opportunity for learning and growth. Okay. So I can absolutely support my recovery with those things. Now, music, finding passion and finding purpose goes beyond just dailies. So he has that going for him. So now it can turn into a cross addiction where he's always doing it and it's out of balance. But to really say, I'm going to dedicate some effort here and feel alive there. Like that's important. Now that he has a guitar, it's free, right? He can play the guitar. I still haven't spent my $1,000, but I haven't gotten to the root of things. So I still haven't totally addressed some things. So if it's $150 for a session, I could get right around 9 sessions. That's more than enough to do some deep trauma work. So on average, I think ART is 3 sessions, maybe. So I could go do ART on 3 different topics and really dig deep into my trauma on those things. Now, when I dig deep into my trauma, I better have that support system for my SA group there that I can call, that I can deal with my triggers, that I better have my dailies in place so I can handle those things. Because I know that I'm going to do that hard work with that $1,000 that I have for this year. I got all these systems all around me supporting me to do this difficult root work. Right now, I run a therapy clinic, Ariel. I just told everybody how to like kind of, hack this so that you don't have to spend a bunch of money. Absolutely. He could do that. The issue is not about doing that exactly. It's about his desire to actually do it, his motivation to do it. So whether you had $1 million or $500, that internal motivation has to be there, or else the therapy is not going to work anyways.
Yeah.
Does that make
that's
sense?
Kind of how I felt. That's how I felt about it the first time around. And that's kind of where, I told him several times when he was in California, I told him, you have to have a change of heart. Like your heart has to be ready for what it's going to take to get you to where you want to be. You say, I see with your words, what you're saying is that you want this, but your heart hasn't shown that that's really what you really want right now,
Mm-hmm.
And that what I want to say back to what you just said, which was, so what you're saying is that all these people that I've heard say, we can't afford this, even if you could do, the bare minimum worth of counseling of some kind, it's still going to get you further than you are as long as you're committed.
No question. I worked with a guy who was so poor, and we did like sessions once every 3 months, like 3 or 4 months. We do one check-in session And all we would do is go over like, hey, are your systems in place for your recovery working? Yeah, I call my sponsor once a day. Holy cow, man, that's free. Good for you. In fact, I'm sponsoring people. Awesome. He has a garden, and he has a garden, he had a horse. So those were like his things that he was passionate about. Good, you got those things. Awesome. So it was just every quarter we'd meet and he'd tell me how awesome he was doing. And then he would go off and create his own recovery. And yeah, I like to dig in with people. I like to work down to some of those unconscious things that they can't see. And that does take some time. And I didn't have that chance to really go there with him, but he was still able to set up a lot of these systems in order to get better. So absolutely, Ariel. I think he can, here's the beauty of trauma therapy. So ART, EMDR, and experiential retreats. So those to me are like the three best get down to the feeling and shift the way you feel deep inside about the trauma that you experienced. Here's the beauty of those things. CSAT, they train you that you have to go through 31 steps to get better. I actually don't fully buy into that. And it's a long process with a very expensive therapist. Trauma therapy, you do EMDR, you can do 4 or 5 sessions and really shift. Like I said, you could do 3 sessions in ART. ART is even faster that's accelerated resolution therapy. It's even faster than EMDR. You can go to a weekend where there's good experiential therapy. It might cost you $1,000, maybe $2,000, and just have groundbreaking experiences that create major shifts in your life. So none of these things, Ariel, are this long, drawn out, expensive therapeutic process. You see what I'm saying? It's doable.
Yeah.
To get to the roots with the amount of money that you have. So, again, though, it's not about the money, and it's not about even finding the best therapist. It's that internal change of heart. I used to suck at doing therapy, Ariel. I used to be so bad at it. And well, because I was just starting, right? I was learning how to do it. And I have people that I still am in contact with who love me and just think I'm the best ever at therapy. And I'm thinking like, man, I gave you horrible advice. I don't know what I was thinking. But they came into therapy knowing that they were going to create recovery. And so I was this kind of thing there that they kind of used in order for them to get themselves to their recovery. And you're kind of doing that in your life, it seems like, Ariel. Like you're figuring this out and trying to get yourself to recovery, right?
Yeah.
I'm not
I
hearing
definitely
that
think
from him.
Yeah. Yeah. And still, I feel like he doesn't save as much as he used to, but I have to jump through all these hoops for you to, be okay with us, our marriage, our relationship. And, I still feel like he's doing it really because I say so, quote unquote. And not really because I have this deep down desire to really work through and get through, all of this stuff that I've been holding on to for so long. We both actually did some EMDR with the first counselor we saw. And they were great for me. I had multiple like really intense trigger things that I was able to work through with it. I got to some nitty gritty stuff for myself. And so I thought EMDR was awesome. My husband had the opposite experience.
Mm-hmm.
And he started having extreme anxiety, panic attacks. And I really went the opposite direction from him. He wasn't really, so we were doing, this was 2020. So we were doing online therapy only at that point. And so they train you how to we use paddles, which are like vibrating things that you have in both hands. And he attempted to use it a few times without the therapist. And I think that was part of the thing that went wrong for him. He didn't know what he was doing, and he probably wasn't using it properly. but he is like intensely against EMDR because he's super afraid to go back to that place in his life where for almost 6 months he was having panic attacks and felt like he was going to die. So he's still very hesitant.
Which Ariel indicates that he really needs it. And so
I know, right?
Right.
I agree.
And so it does need to be done in the right way where there's a lot of safety there and tools for him to contain things and work through the emotions that come up. But it just shows that he really needs it.
Yeah. And
there's
he had
stuff
said,
there.
Yeah, he had said, I've never experienced anxiety before. I didn't know what anxiety was. Mm-hmm. But I think it just really intensified what he was already dealing with, what he was already feeling. There's no way you can grow up being neglected and having complete abandonment, to not have anxiety around relationships and other people. It really elevated his social anxiety too, which hasn't gotten better. At least he can sit with people now. I mean, he can sit in a room, he can go to church and stuff, but for well over 6 months, like he couldn't even be in a room with people. Like he was this like, grabbing the chair kind of situation. Which is, it's slowly gotten better. I think being in a group and having, forcing himself to be in a group for a year really did help him to get through some of that. But yeah, he's intensely against EMDR, and I think it's awesome. And if you can find someone who's good and knows what they're doing, it definitely helps.
Look at how you're describing the threshold here. So it's, he's learned how to survive and kind of be in this place. And it's like this box that's got a good lock on it inside of him. And the EMDR unlocked the box just a little bit. And it was like, here it comes. It's all coming out. And so he shoved it all back in the box and locked the box up again. It's like, nope. We need to open that box. We need to open it slowly enough that we can get some out. The EMDR was working for him. It was moving energy. It was moving emotion. It was working. And the pathway out of hell is through misery sometimes. And he's not facing that misery. He's falling back into hell, and he doesn't need to live in that pain forever. But the only way out is through that threshold. And so you're seeing him on the playing it safe on the one side of like, I'm not going to go through that. I'm not going to go through that. And that you won't fully get what you want and desire in your marriage unless he does allow himself to walk through that. And that's where the ambivalence is, or the lack of motivation. Because who wants to go do that? Who wants to go create panic attacks for themselves and feel anxiety and fear and all this trauma? But it makes total sense considering how much trauma that he's had. Makes total sense why he's like, ugh, I don't know if I can go after the roots here. So, is it about money? It would be nice if you guys had a lot of money to just, hang out in therapy, every other day and whatever. That would be great. And I'm not saying that the money stress isn't real. I think it is an issue. But I don't think it is the issue in terms of moving forward with the healing, as we've been talking, Ariel.
So I got a question. In your opinion, do you think it would be better to take, say, $3,000, put it into a weekly session, kind of situation, or, biweekly or whatever? Or would an intensive be more of an effective route to get somewhere?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I would lean toward an intensive that's going to jar him open. First and foremost, before you spend that money week in and week out, because you're kind of throwing the money down the toilet a little bit, unless he's fully motivated and willing to do the hardest work. And so if that intensive is focused on soul work, connecting to God, finding out who he is, his purpose, that'll awaken him up to then go do the actual day in and day out work. So that's what I would say.
I like that a lot.
Yeah. But even when he goes to the intensive, the same principle applies of, if he goes and he's like, well, I'm going to be avoidant the whole time and I don't want to do this hard work. And then the intensive will just be weird to him and it'll be awkward. And he'll be like, that was the worst experience of my life. But if he goes with, I'm going to be brave, I'm going to be strong, and I'm going to try to go bust this open a little bit, then that could set him in the right trajectory. So
So I know you've seen a lot of people. So for people in my husband's situation who are obviously avoidant and hesitant to breaking it wide open, um, do you sit around and wait for them to figure that out? I mean, do you push them in the right direction? One of the things I told him before he came home and why things are going so slow currently, because honestly, if I was in charge, he would have been in a group in counseling, and we would have had set up with either
Right.
our pastor or my counselor or someone to work through some of these conflicts we've been having uh, within the same week of him coming home. But I told him before he came home, I said, okay, I have got to take my hands off these reins. Like, I have to let go of this. I have to say, I'm stepping back. I'm 20 weeks
Yes,
pregnant now.
you do, Ariel. I can see that. Good for you.
There is an intense amount of stress with the
Yes.
whole thing. And so I just had to say, okay, I
Yep.
just can't handle the amount of stress this is. I can't handle, being in charge of making sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. Like, this is on you. This is
Yep.
your stuff.
Yep.
But come a month later, not in a group, not in counseling,
Right.
hasn't set up with a pastor or, another counselor for us to work through conflicts. It's like, do you just keep waiting on that line? Like, okay, we'll just see what happens.
So what I mean, we get back to your boundary. Like, what is your boundary with this? Let me work with you for just a second, Ariel. He's breaking a boundary of yours by not doing this hard work. What is the boundary? It's not about him. It's about you. You know what I'm asking?
Yeah. Well, and he constantly says, well, this is just an ultimatum. This whole thing for us started in like November of last year. He had the roughest month he's had since he started in this. So 3 years ago, his average was like weekly, bi-weekly kind of thing for slips. And, he was relapsing like 3 times a week, which is what he said when he told me. I said, well, how often have you been viewing pornography? And he said, like somewhere between 1 and 3 times a week. And so he was, November of last year, he was at that point. He was in full on relapse mode, like not in recovery, not doing any of the things he was supposed to be doing. And so come the end of that month, I said, here's the deal. You get yourself into something, into a group, back into with a trained counselor, or you need to leave. Like, we can't continue on. We're not going to get better. We're not going to build trust. We're not going to be in a good marriage until you figure your things out.
Yeah.
And December, he said, I'm really considering divorce. And so that was kind of the breaking point for us, was like, okay, we're really on the edge here.
Mm-hmm.
And I begged him to stay. I asked him not to leave. I told him that, at that point, I had been in counseling for 2.5 months. I'd really worked through a lot of stuff for myself, and I could see I was becoming a different person. And, part of his avoidant and conflict situation, my out of control is anger. Like, if I feel out of control, then I put all emotions on the back, and I use anger as a tool to, get that need met. And so that's the area that I've been really working on for myself, that, if he comes to me and is honest, I'm not immediately flipping a lid, losing my mind.
Right.
But so that December is when I realized how our marriage was hanging on by a string at that point in time. And then pretty much every argument after that, feeling that there wasn't really any connection there was like brutal. I mean, our arguments were brutal. They were loud. They were, inappropriate, to say the least. Like, people shouldn't be going there. And so one of those out of control arguments was when I said, I feel like you need to leave. I feel like we've gone too far. We got to figure this out in a different way. He's not an angry person. In the 15 years we've been married, I think I can recall 2 times that he lost his temper. He hasn't cussed since he was 10 years old. He cussed in the closet when he was 10, and he was cussing at me in that situation. And he's never done that. He's never been that way. And so that was when I was like, whoa, 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 what is even going on? Like, this is not that. There's more to this story, And something he said is like, I feel like you're just pushing me over the edge all the time. You're just pushing me over the edge. And
Ariel, if I could
see all of these things happening and all of this stuff. And the truth is, he is my best friend.
Uh-huh.
There is no one I would rather go to than him.
But
And so I think that's the hardest part, is realizing there's nothing I can do to force him to change. I've definitely come to that place. But at the same token, I don't want to lose him either.
but
And I
Ariel,
want my family to stay together.
Ariel, your best option, your best thing to do right now is to not push him over the edge, not try to get him to do things, not push him. He's avoidant, so he's going to hate that, and you're going to keep like going after him, and he's going to keep running away. So stop doing that. Back up, and it's about you being vulnerable with him about you and about what you need. And so it's not, you better do A, B, and C. And so you're doing the best to try to back off, right? But this is what I need. It's not about expectations either. I expect you to do this. It's really on a real level for you of who you are. So I need love. I need support. I need safety and fidelity. Like whether I'm with you, husband, or whether I was with somebody else, like I would need these things. And I'm not getting these things. And I need you to know that I need to fight for myself and for who I am. And that's why I'm being honest with you about what I need. And so you can go, do whatever you want to do, like ride a unicorn to the moon to get better. I don't care. But figure out how to provide these things that I need in a relationship for me. And if you just say, nope, forget it, I'm going to divorce you because of that, because that's what you need, then Ariel, you really got to look at that of, is this man really wanting to love you? And I realize because the kids and the money and all these things, you might be held hostage, but you got to ask yourself, am I going to stay and spend my life in a relationship with a person who's not choosing to love me? Now, if you actually get vulnerable with those boundaries and say, this is what I need, he might say something back to you like, I don't know how to meet those needs. Like I want to, but I don't know how. And that's where you can say, well, let's start working together here on this. Let's try to figure it out. It'll be sloppy, but at least I got somebody who wants to figure this out and cares about what I need. Right.
Yeah, I feel like I think that's the hardest part for us in this, is that he is very committed to safety for me. He updates me. He turns his computer off immediately after work, which was one of the things we had talked about. There are so many things he's put into place for himself, for me, not for himself, but for me.
But that's not
that he has safety for me.
That will not create safety. That won't create safety. If I met with a guy, he got on a session with me and he was like, I hate meeting with you. I'm only here because of my wife. Like, this is so stupid. What do you think I said to him?
Come back when you're ready.
I just said, well, let's turn off this session and go be honest with your wife that you don't want to meet with me. That's how you're going to take a first step to actually solve this issue with your wife. But I'm a part of the problem if you're meeting with me, placating her and manipulating the situation, acting like you're one thing when you're another. You see what I mean? So he's not committed to safety. He's committed to compliance so that he can look a certain way so that you don't run. Safety is actual strength. It's actual, I'm going to be honest with you even when it's hard. And so that's the work that he needs to do, is to figure out how to be that type of man to create that safety. And the work that you do is, I want real safety. I want real safety. I want to know when you go to California or you go, like, we're good. Things are okay because you're taking care of your own stuff and I'm taking care of mine. Not I'm taking care of yours and I'm taking care of mine. Right?
Yeah. And there has been points in this journey where I felt like he was really stepping up to that. I think that, so our daughter is 18 months old, and from the day she was born, that was the longest stretch. It was 6 months from the day she was born until she was about 6 months old. And I had left on a trip somewhere. I was taking a puppy to Reno to fly a puppy out, and he relapsed while I was gone. I was gone for like 4 days. And there was something in him at that point in time where he just felt like the ultimate failure, and I don't think anything has changed since then. That was April of last year. I feel like since then there's something different that he can't seem to go back to. And maybe he was white knuckling then. I don't know,
And
honestly.
yeah, but there is,
But
yeah,
he showed that commitment and really like standing in the zone of like seeing the pain and being there. And that was probably the most trust that I felt like I had in the last 3 years, was when he really stood in the midst of all of it and was battling, and that's what I told him. I was like, I don't want to fight with you. I want to fight beside you. And when you're fighting, when you're actually doing the work to fight, that's when I want to be next to you. That's when I want to give you support. That's when I want to be there with you. And I feel like that's what's kind of been missing, is that he just really hasn't had that fight in him to do the things that he needs to do. And
which makes me wonder. It makes me wonder, Ariel, about what he's hiding from. Like, is it the pain of the trauma? Yeah. Is there other secrets? Like, I don't know, but there's something that's terrifying to like not go do the real work. So to placate, to do enough to appease you, you don't want him to appease you anymore. Don't appease me. I want you to get better. I love you. Get better. I want to support you in that, but I want to be honest with you about who I am. We're running out of time, Ariel. I could talk to you all day long. I really appreciate your vulnerability and your willingness to talk about just all the experiences you're going through. And I also want to say, you're a hero, Ariel. 6 kids with one on the way and a farm. Like, holy cow. You're doing a lot of good by raising all those kids and dealing with this at the same time. So I hope you take a break sometimes for yourself and realize how awesome you are. So, okay, Ariel, I'll let you go. Have a good one. We'll see you later.
11 o'clock. I just want to say one more thing, which is I've listened to dozens of different therapists on podcasts, and I do feel like you're the most intuitive therapist I've ever listened to. And every time I hear you, I'm like, how does he know? Like, there are things that are like deep down. And I'm like, dang, he's so good at his job.
Well, thanks, Ariel. I appreciate that. So,
you're welcome.
All right. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
All right. Have a good day. Bye.